see what you're speaking about today, Austin. Ah, good guess. Sorry.
Thanks very much, Sonia. Well, happy World Statistics Day. I'm sure you'll all join me on the Brisbane River for the fireworks that I'm sure are going to happen. It is actually the UN's World Statistics Day, so what a very appropriate sort of day to have this forum. City research, city indicators, and the global cities indicator framework. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today, those three key items. City research, first of all. Why is the City of Melbourne interested in indicators and global indicators at that? Why are we representing the Global Cities Indicator Framework? Well, the City of Melbourne has had a city research capacity, which I manage, since 1995. We have 12 permanent staff dedicated to city research, and we coordinate the city research across the whole of the municipality. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the City of Melbourne, it's one of 30 municipalities across the whole of metropolitan Melbourne, and it's in the central part. But in 1995, to tell a little bit of a story, I joined the City of Melbourne to start that research capability, and it was in the dim, dark ages when things were pretty bleak. We'd just come out of a recession. There were some fairly nasty comments being made about Melbourne and how it was the rust part of the capital of the rust bucket state and that sort of thing. So when this organisation called the World Capital Institute declared that Melbourne was one of the world's most livable cities, we grasped it and said, we'll run with that, that's terrific. But they set up the City Research Branch to monitor our competitiveness and livability against other cities. And we ran a benchmarking program for about 5 years to do exactly that. And ever since then, we've been interested in indicators, and we've developed expertise in looking at city indicators and trying to work out how we measure how our performance is and how we're comparing against other cities. And we've run a number of conferences and benchmarking conferences. We've been involved in indicator programs over a number of years. So there's a wealth of expertise there that we've built up, and we share that with other cities where we can and the expertise that we have. And I think that's one message that I think we'd really like to take, is that it's one thing to have planning, but you've got to have the resources that understand the city in a whole way, in a complete way. And I think the launch of the State of Australian Cities report today is a terrific initiative, that second initiative, or second edition. So if we think about indicators, turning to the next part of the talk, city indicators themselves, in a global sense, why are they important? Why should we consider them? Well, consider this. In 1900, 1.7 billion people lived in the world. 10% of them lived in cities, and there are only 16 cities that were greater than 1 million. We've passed the halfway mark now. 2007, we've got 6.5 billion people across the globe, 50% of whom live in cities, and there are 450 cities of over 1 million. If you go forward to 2050, the figures are even more dramatic. 9 billion people, 75% of whom will be living in cities, with an estimated 600 cities greater than 1 million. Now, they're fairly staggering figures when you consider that this is what's driving our global economy, and was said earlier, it's driving our climate change. We've got this rising middle class in these cities who want to aspire to the things that we have. So who do they turn to? Who do they look to say, okay, which cities do we want to be like? Naturally, they look at the Australian cities because they rank highly on these indicators, such as the Mercer and Economist Intelligence Unit indicators. But what are those indicators? They're actually designed to assist companies who place expats around the world to see whether or not they should be recompensed for some hardship that those expats might suffer when they go to a city. they're not designed for monitoring cities. They're not designed for measuring the quality of life in cities. And if you speak to the people who do them, they'll tell you exactly that. So we do need some indicators that do this sort of thing. But let's suppose you actually take those indicators and you consider that they are a model for cities in the future. The work that I did last year with Peter Newton, looking at sustainable cities, was very interesting. Peter plotted the global footprints of cities against their livability as rated on the EIU scales. And what he found was an inverse relationship. The more livable, the less sustainable. So in effect, what you've got is some of the cities, like Melbourne, unsustainable in a consumption term. Basically, it's due to the materialistic economy that we have, or based on consuming goods and the way that the city is structured at the moment. But those cities, which are supposed to be livable and guides to the others, are in fact unsustainable. So imagine what would happen considering that first chart of every city of the ones in the future aspire to the livability that we currently have, which is why it's so important to have indicators, and also for our cities in Australia to look at becoming more sustainable, maintain livability or improve it, but becoming more sustainable. What we do in Melbourne is, as other cities do, and I was talking to someone from Townsville earlier, we have our community plan, we have our council plan, and we have our annual plan. The community plan gives a vision for 10 years. The council plan is a 4-year response to that, and then there's an annual plan of what we do. But we measure. We try to measure what we do. We try to compare how what we do is working and looking at other cities and how they're performing. That's the difficult part. But this is where there's an advantage. Now, we have just joined the Global Cities Indicator Facility only a year or so ago to really give it a try and see what it has to offer. Now, as you can see, there are 146 member countries or cities, and it's growing. I'm not saying it's a panacea. I'm just saying that there is a wealth of information that is contained within this indicator network, and I think it's worthwhile giving it a go to actually get a sense of what information we have that could be used to help us. It's not, in a sense, an index. It provides a range of 2 categories, if you like, of indicators: broad themes, city services, and quality of life. And those themes, you can analyse the data. So what it requires is an individual or an organisation to actually put in information for the city, to enter that data, and then you're able to actually compare it to other cities that you select and certain variables that you can select. It's got the credentials, I think. It has 6 cities on the board, 7 organisations, including UN Habitat, ICLEI, World Bank. It's housed in the University of Toronto, and it's backed, I'm told, by them for the next 3 years by the Ontario government. It has had World Bank support, and it's continuing to have support from a range of private interests as well. And that's what's one of the lessons we learnt in the exercising that we had, in the exercise we did on city benchmarking some time ago, is that it's very resource intensive, and you need to have a commitment to it. You need to be able to have organisations that are actually going to support it. But one of the other lessons that we learned was that you can't actually come up with your own version in a way. Certainly do it for your city, for the livability and the comparability, or if you like, the competition that your city might have compared to other cities. But if you enter into that agreement with other cities, it's difficult because they have different sets of values or different weights that they place on the indicators. So what you need is a set of indicators from which you can select and, in a sense, mix and match. So the Global City Indicators Facility, there are 2 reports online. One describes the actual facility facility itself and its backing. The other describes all of the indicators, which I won't go into detail because there are over 130. But it's released a number of indicator reports at the moment, or groupings of indicators, and I'll just put up a few of them at the moment. But as you can see, they're very relevant to the subjects that we've got and that we're discussing at the moment. And this last one, I think, is particularly important too. They're all issues that are of worldwide, I think, significance or importance to cities. So, finally, just summing up, why would you listen to someone from Melbourne? I hope we have the credentials through our city research branch, and we're certainly working with other areas, and we'd like to continue to do that with other councils and support them. Why are indicators important? As you can see, the world is urbanising. We need, and we have a lead, I think, role to take in Australia, but I think we need indicators and to share that information and work with other cities, and we need to have the resources to do it. And there is a facility, this Global Indicators Facility, which I'd recommend that you have a look at and participate in and contribute to, because that will help shape it and I think be of great benefit to other cities so that they can learn from us and we can learn from them. Thank you very much, and I'll see you at the celebrations for World Statistics Day.
Thank you, Austin. We will call all of our speakers back to the panel for questions after we hear the four presentations today. Next speaker, I'd like to welcome Christine Platt back to